who's here today. It's good to see you all. Today's topic is belief. Have your beliefs shifted in the last 5, 6, 7, 8 years? Mine have. Boy, we've never seen such a time of darkness birth light. I wanted to speak into a couple of things today, and one is that don't hold on to your belief systems too tightly, because that gets our ego into trouble, you see. But you've got to feel it to heal it, actually. And a lot of what we struggle and what we're going through is actually happening because of your belief system. If you believe you're poor, you will be. If you believe you're sick, you will be. If you believe that you're going to die, odds are you might. And therefore, we are so much more powerful, made in the image, than we ever were taught, than we were ever given credit for. A lot of belief systems that you're holding are not yours. They are cultural, they are religious, they are parental, they are things that have been taught by anybody that you might look up to, actually. And a lot of it's negative self-talk, negative programming. I need you to feel into it to shift it. Ask yourself this question today: how is this belief serving me? How does it make me feel? Is this belief empowering me, or is this belief stealing from me? Is this belief making me healthy, or is this belief making me sick? Is this belief adding to my bank account, or is this belief keeping me broke and in a trap of thinking that I'm a nobody? Is this belief protecting the ego for something that God really wants to shift out of me? And are you energizing a belief or a collective thought that isn't truth? One of the first speaking engagements I had on return to Sydney was to a church, actually, a fairly conservative church at that, but I was asked to speak to a packed room. And back then I used to make some notes. I've shifted things a little bit. I just put points now. I don't really write notes out. I just flow. I remember driving to the engagement and hearing Spirit say to me, "You're not going to talk about that topic. You're going to talk about voices in your head." I'm like, oh my gosh, it's a conservative church, as if I'm going to speak about voices in your head. But I've learned to just be obedient, actually, no matter what the judgment happens. You know, whatever's thrown back at me, that's their belief system, not mine. All I can do is be true to what I have been gifted, and that is the gift of clairaudience, actually. And yeah, I did cop a bit of flack for that speaking engagement, but I spoke truth, and I met one precious soul, and I'm still really good friends with her. She ended up being my first client in Sydney in 1998. We worked together for quite some years, actually. She'd come from an incessant amount of trauma. She had come from a fractalized personality. She had come from so much trauma that her mind had split in order to be able to hold a certain level of truth for each experience that had happened in her early childhood. Really sad. But I'm here to say that she's integrated now, and she's more powerful than I've ever met before. She's no longer poor. She's no longer trapped. She's no longer living in housing commission. I'm super proud of her, and it's her story, not mine. And I can't wait for her to speak loudly about this type of thing. This is the type of thing that I see that keeps me going regardless of judgment. I know when I hear Spirit that I am speaking for the ones and twos. Now, today I got a message saying that my things on my Instagram are rather cryptic, and yes, they are. Not by design, I just speak what I hear. And so thank you for being here. I'm grateful. Have your beliefs kept you in prison? Are they even yours? What's your measuring stick? Your measuring stick should be your values. One of my values is peace. And so I ask myself, for those that come to my house, does this guest bring me peace? And I have an easy question as to whether or not to ask them to come over again. It's the same with your beliefs. Does this belief system bring me peace? Does this belief system bring me healing? Does this belief system bring me expansion or shame? Now, I want to get into some weird stuff today. I want to talk about the divine rod of light and the darkness. And some of us think on the spiritual journey that you can only find God through the light. But in fact, it's the darkness that teaches us an awful lot. The darkness is the feminine energy of what we might call the Godhead. Think about a woman giving birth. A baby's conceived in the dark womb and birthed out of darkness. You don't really know what you're getting when you're creating out of chaos, out of darkness, right? This is the fractal of the moon. The moon affects the waters and the tides of the ocean and the body. And so when we have full moon, that's affecting our polarity. It's affecting us. And for a lot of people that have trapped feelings, that can create chaos. The sun is the light. So we have these fractals right through nature, but inside of you, you've got light and darkness. You have got left hemisphere and right hemisphere. You have subconscious and you have conscious thinking. You have the ability to have those things hemi-synced if you're holding the rod of God, which is the light, which is Christ. It is Christ consciousness, I believe. And the rod of God, when it switches on within you, I believe we all have a divine switch that hemi-syncs us to think in a higher state of thinking, and out of this fear state, out of reptilian brain, we can then see that a lot of the belief systems that we were holding are not leading us to love, they're not leading us to peace, and they're definitely not leading us to joy. A lot of them are traditions of men, by design, by design. Some of our beliefs keep us in prison state. Hear the word cell? The cell of the body, the cell of the mind, the cell of the heart state. If it's not love, joy, peace, then that belief system isn't working for you. It's keeping you trapped. And in this last few years, we've seen an explosion of darkness. Chaos magic, actually. Those that are the elite use chaos magic intentionally in order to create havoc so that they can have you birth out of it. Only those that hold the creator, the DNA of the creator, can actually co-create. The entities need your energy to believe and then will it in. This is called predictive programming. Some of your beliefs come from television things that you're watching. Some of your beliefs come from newspapers. Some of your beliefs come from advertising. You might be walking around in life thinking that you're not good enough because the models that you're looking have all been photoshopped or they're inverted. That's why their bodies are so slim. I'm speaking to you, women. Yes, the elite love inversion on every single level, and as we're waking up to the chaos magic, we are realizing, hey, we too can birth out of darkness. How many of you have created new businesses, new explosive ideas out of this dark season? I have. Have you? I'd love to hear what you're doing, because in chaos, if we're centered in the God rod or the rod of light, we find peace, peace in the middle of the storm. What are you birthing during this chaotic time? Or are you birthing for the elite? I'll give you some really simple examples of how belief systems have kept me trapped. I used to tell myself I can't remember names, and therefore I couldn't. Another mantra that I had on autopilot was I cannot do bookwork, and Spirit would say to me, well, goodness me, learn. And I have friends that are teaching me that as soon as you tell yourself you can't do something, your body will follow suit. You are following a belief system. If you tell yourself you can't lose weight, or you tell yourself that you can't wealth build, therefore you can't. That's how powerful you are. Some of us walk around life telling ourselves that we're stupid or that we're not good enough for a loving relationship, and therefore we are. Have we co-created in the chaos of a belief system that isn't technically ours? We have to surrender to make space for the new. And this works with beliefs too. If you are holding old belief systems that are not bringing you love, joy, and peace, it's time to clean house. I want you to analyze your beliefs today. Maybe some of you aren't even aware what your beliefs are. Maybe you haven't been challenged like I'm challenging you today. I was asked to write my values down a few months ago. I find it really hard. What are my values? And that means I'm walking through life blindly, actually. So I've written a list of values now. If it isn't spiritual, if it isn't peaceful, if it isn't creative, if it isn't reciprocal, if it isn't, and I've got a few others, but you get the drift, right? If it doesn't fall into those values, then it's not right for me. And so I've added that list to my client pool. I've added it to my friendships. I've added to my business model. I've added it to everything that I do, because I'm starting to love myself in this. And this is a really beautiful measuring stick for finding belief systems that are truth, actually. To believe doesn't require proof, actually. To believe something takes faith. And that's where you are so magical. Just moving my speaker away because I'm not sure how loud that next song is. It just requires acceptance. And so if you've accepted that you're something that's a bit less than amazing, that's a false belief system. The Germanic root ga and lib, they're two frequencies or two words that link to belief. See the word lie in English, right smack in the middle of the word belief. And ga and lib mean to hold clear, accepting as true or real, to trust in, to have confidence in, to be held as an opinion. And opinions can shift, right? Think about it now. How many beliefs have you held tightly to an ego state where you've been wrong? Maybe your first lover, you thought you were going to be with them forever and you really believed it. And yet, here you are, not with them. Maybe you really believed you'd win the lotto. Maybe you really believed you were right in your religious belief. And you weren't, because you were so fixated on that, you didn't have any heart space open for somebody to challenge your opinion. Beliefs affect our behavior. Beliefs affect our unconscious, our programming. Beliefs affect our conscious habits, things we do when we don't really know why we do them. Beliefs affect rational decision making. We've seen that in the last few years, haven't we? Those that loved us shunned us for our belief systems. Beliefs create resilience, though. And this is what I'm talking about, where the light can birth out of chaos, the light can birth out of darkness. We have aspects to self. Here am I, here in the middle. Here am I as higher self, seated in the heavenlies. And here am I as inner child. And yet myself now is inner child for higher self. And you see that our belief systems shift and change as we climb along the timeline ladder. Anchor your Christed light. It's pouring in now. The light codes are off the Richter scale. With the Christed life, your belief systems by design are meant to be upturned. You were created to surrender all. Open up your heart and say, I was wrong. I was wrong about everything. It's all been upturned. All been upturned. That is the surrender, and whatever you surrender and lay down will be gifted back to you. These light codes affect your reality. They affect your ability to co-create. They affect what you are addicted to. Belief systems will have you addicted. Some of you may be addicted to gossip. Some of you may be addicted to sex because you don't feel good enough. Some of you are addicted to addictive substances because you're just trying to hide the pain. We have to feel it to heal it. That's not a belief system, that's fact. Evil is real. I've met it face to face. It doesn't go away if you keep your vibes high. I talk about vibrations here a lot, and yes, you shift things, but in fact, the higher vibrational you are, the clearer you will see darkness. And so what do? Don't fear evil. Face it, eye to eye. Be the eye of the Most High. As your third eye is opening, you'll be able to see things that others that are asleep cannot see. It's quite the opposite to engage evil and not be afraid, actually. You're pulling the light into a dark space, and a lot of humans are doing this currently as beautiful children of Creator. Don't fear death. Your belief system that death is the end is what's keeping you trapped in fear. If you face death head on and surrender to death and facing the evil head on, you have nothing to lose, actually. This is the role of the sacred warrior. The sacred warrior surrenders all, not just beliefs, but life itself, breath itself, their finances. They lay everything on the altar, and that's how you'll know. That's how you'll know who is truly doing the inner work. You've got to feel it to heal it. Darkness teaches us as a friend. Connection to God, and say, this evil is not having any influence in my dimension, not on my watch. I've heard myself speak this many times. It's not judgment, it's alignment. I will judge something when that evil's in me. It's an assessment, it's a witness. It's a facing truth and reality. For as long as we're living duality, we will have light and darkness. And as light expands, darkness will become really, really obvious. Some may speak of manifestation as if they're in a spiritual bubble. But the spiritual bubble isn't enough. You need to expand that light state into the darkness and reveal what's going on. This is no easy task. This is the task for those that put their hands up to be the warriors, at the risk of losing everything, actually. The laying down of everything on the altar, the selfless love. And we do this with the rods of light, or the rod of light. You'll see in all ancient texts, all the ancients held a rod. Even in our modern stories like Star Wars, you'll see the rods are held as symbols of activity that's happening within your spine. A symbol of authority, it's protection against enemies, a symbol of God's protection. It's an instrument of frequencies that are so intense that work against offense and defense. A branch from the tree of knowledge, of gnosis, actually. Wisdom is in the rod of light, straight from the Garden of Eden. I love to watch documentaries, and I've been watching tons of them on the Naga, or the serpent people. In ancient India, they'd talk about the legends of those that were half human and half snake, said to be cobra. I think it's more like fallen dragons, actually, from my studies, because I study the etymology of the words. These were said to be godlike beings with supernatural ability. They were traders. They held the spices. They held the wealth. They held the gold. They built canals. And it was the Chinese and others along the Silk Road that used to trade with them. These serpent people were shapeshifters. Our DNA has been infiltrated, actually. I find these types of things really fascinating. But these Nagas were said to hold the gnosis, or the wisdom. They were said to be the sages. They were said to be the ones that held the wisdom keys. I'm not debating that, because when I look up the word for where the gnosis books were found from early Christianity, they were found in the caves, actually, in Egypt. And they're called the Nag Hammadi. They were found there, and I can't help but hear the frequency of Nag or Naga, Gnosis, snake. The Nagas were associated with water. We can see the serpent symbol in all of the texts, actually. The Kundalini awakening, or the seed of Gnosis, having to flow up through the spine with the God awakening. We can see it in the rod that Moses held up. And those that looked above the actual serpent found life. They found truth. They found the antidote. But the antidote was through the darkness. All of them were bitten. We can wheel this into our situation now, where there is miniature rods in action. And so for those that truly need healing, you've got to feel it. You've got to go into the darkness. You've got to enter your own chaos and climb up and have your eyes on a belief system that brings you love, joy, peace, and faith. And that's how you heal. You've forgotten how powerful you are in the doctrines of people or snakes or Naga that don't want you to know that you actually co-create. And you can co-create powerfully out of darkness, which is feminine energy. You can actually rebirth your spirit during a time where you're feeling oppressed, or a time of lack, or a time where you don't have enough. How many of us don't even seek for the spiritual unless we've hit rock bottom? Most of us. I'd love you to read the lost books of the Nag Hammadi from Egypt and see whether they resonate, whether they challenge your belief system. There's a time now, like never, for unlearning, for being open to just sit with others that think differently, to read books like the Gospel of Mary and the Gospel of Thomas and assess that many of the ancient teachings align. There's no divide. We're all mystical beings. We're all made in the image of Creator, and the battle was for the DNA. And some of us got bitten by the poisonous asp because of fractals, because history has been repeating. It's gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. Those giants of old are now back to using modern technology, just like they were in Atlantis. Look higher, climb the snake, allow your seed to activate, and set your visions on the unseen. Stare death right in its eye and watch what happens when you choose to fly. I hope this helps somebody today. It's not my job to awaken, that's what Spirit said to me, but it is my job to just seed drop and water, because Gnosis does that. I hope this helps you, and anyone that you feel might be struggling in this season, please comfort them with the fact that great things are birthed out of chaos. Oh, thank you so much, Amanda. I appreciate you being here. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And align with love, joy, peace, and faith. If it doesn't fit with that, it's time to shift your belief systems. It's time to shift the lies out of your heart. Giving you all a wave. Thank you for being here. I appreciate you.